Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome to my show. My name is Aaox and today we'll be looking at Jak and Daxter and the Precursor Legacy HD remake on the PS3. It was originally on the PS2, but we don't care about that. This game and the franchise it's from was very important to me as a kid, and it's still one of my favourite franchises of all time, so I figured it would make a great point for the first episode of my show. So without further ado, let's roll the opening. Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, is the opening entry in Naughty Dog's Jak trilogy, starring the titular Jak and Daxter, the mute hero with the magic touch, and the annoying orange Otzel sidekick, respectively. And of course you've got the same old stable of cookie-cutter side characters like Kira, the mechanic come love interest with a heart of gold, an unreasonably proportioned figure, killer eyelashes, and...
she has very good childbearing hips.
And then there's Samos, the green mage, who enjoys berating the people who are trying to save the world, destroying zeppelins for no good reason, and talking to rocks and plants. And of course, to round everything out, we've got Gol and Myra, the dark sages, and main villains with unreasonable figures, although for very different reasons. And of course there's this... guy. But that's really all you need to know about the characters, because we don't come to Jak and Daxter for characters, we come for jumps and punching and spinning and stuff. So let's get to the jumps and punching and spinning and stuff, shall we? As I said before, this is a game made by Naughty Dog. You know, the people who made these. And more recently this. In fact, there's a rumour that what inspired The Last of Us was a plan internally to reimagine Jak and Daxter, where Jak was a straight-up human as opposed to a weird elf thing, and Daxter was just a regular ass weasel, but the game, understandably some might say, was scrapped. However, the idea of two teammates working closely together in spite of their differences stuck, and eventually became Joel and Ellie. It's probably a true story. Now, Naughty Dog might be somewhat more well known for its latter games, and perhaps rightly so, but before the guns and the good graphics and the whoosh bang patow and all that, the Doge created two franchises. Crash Bandicoot for the PlayStation 1 and Jak and Daxter for the PlayStation 2. Both game franchises were an integral part of my youth, with Crash Bandicoot 2 being the first console game I ever played on the first home console I ever owned, thanks to a particularly awesome uncle, and they were both 3D platformers. And Jak and Daxter was built upon the lessons they learned from making Crash. Crash Bandicoot featured a lanky, orange, mute marsupial, save the occasional woe, who wore blue jeans as he collected crystals to stop evil scientist Dr. Neo Cortex, the man who created him, from taking over the world. The star of creativity must have shone on the Naughty Dog brainstorming session out of which Jak and Daxter were conceived then, as Jak is a young, mute, human elf guy thing, it's never explained, with a blue tunic, monstrously small waist, and large, lanky, almost to the point of being disturbing arms. They go beneath his knees. They go beneath his knee. Daxter is an orange marsupial who often spouts useful advice.
Yeah, so we got a precursor launcher here, but you aren't powered up with the blue stuff, so it ain't gonna help us!
And funny little quips, often when you die.
Don't step into the light, Jak! Don't step into the light! That looks like it hurt. Should I call for backup?
You little orange bastard. So, Crash is great, Uncharted's great, and The Last of Us is fucking fantastic, but the real nostalgia trip out of the bunch for me is the Jak series. With the HD trilogy having been released recently on PSN, I figured now's a good time to jump back in and see if the rose-tinted 60s aviator shades of reminiscence hold up under the scrutiny of those odd varifocal glasses that doctors and dentists wear sometimes. So you've got your three basic collectibles. Precursor orbs, which are used for currency to buy power cells, and they're laying around the level to show you the critical path. Scout flies, with 7 hidden around each level, and upon collection will yield a power cell. And power cells, the main collectible, of which there are 100 total, but only 72 are required to actually beat the game. Now, here's something I always found odd. Jak controls pretty much precisely like Crash, only with a few odd alterations. In Crash, to spin, one tapped square, and to slide, one tapped circle. However, in Jak and Daxter, to spin, one pushes circle, and to do Jak's slide equivalent, one has to push square. Good job there, guys. Mixing it up. A common complaint I hear levied against 3D platformers is that it's hard to judge depth and therefore makes them antithetical to the idea of precision jumping, which is the cornerstone of platforming. And yes, I can't deny that can, at times, certainly be a problem, but through this, one of the genre's best features comes to light, and it creates the razor edge of game design. Developers absolutely must create an appropriate toolset for the solving of the problems that the platforming presents. In platformers, the terrain itself poses just as much of a problem as any enemies you might encounter along the way, and therefore is an obstacle that you have to overcome. In this, Naughty Dog excels. Having been in the 3D platforming business almost since its inception, well, more or less, and the Uravu-Adavu relationship the company had with Insomniac, the company responsible for Ratchet & Clank, Naughty Dog had creating tool sets down. By the end of Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, Crash had advanced jumping in the scientifically perplexing double jump, and an advanced spin attack to allow for more precise mid-air correction, as well as making landing far easier. Having refined their own unique brand of platforming, Naughty Dog was free to experiment with their gameplay mechanics and game design in general. And so, between Jak and Crash, there were two major differences introduced: an open-world approach to level design, as opposed to the previously very linear, straightforward path that Crash had, and power-ups taking the form of eco, as opposed to Crash's previous one boss, one power-up. The open world level design has its pros and cons. There's a real sense of scale to the world, and often you can see the entire game world in the distance. The levels are often sprawling and at times labyrinthine though. Boggy Swamp is especially guilty of this. Whilst this allows for more in-depth platforming and more complex challenges, it also means you're often left wandering around cluelessly. This is remedied somewhat by the Precursor Orb sort of acting like a reverse breadcrumb trail, but after you pick them up they're gone permanently. Since Jak already has all of Crash's powers, I don't know how. Maybe they're the same correspondence cause or something. When life hands you lemons, spin the lemons. Platforming 101. Naughty Dog introduced Eco, short time-limited power-ups that can be extended by collecting more. This was both really cool and a curse, as it creates a sense of tension to certain platforming sections that require Eco, but if you run out of Eco, you're often left stranded. There are 4 kinds of Eco. Blue Eco gives you a blue glow, lets you run fast and activate old Precursor technology by coming into contact with it. Green Eco heals you, or at least it's meant to. Collecting 50 small pieces, or 1 large piece, restores 1/3 of your health meter. It's also functional as a weed killer. Yellow and red Eco are combat-oriented. Yellow Eco lets you shoot fireballs like a certain Italian plumber, and red Eco augments your attacks with fire, allowing your body to become ever more ready. So the elements represented here are earth, lightning, fire, and fire. Yep, that's how it goes. Also, when you collect Eco, you do this little jump, which often gets you killed. Because of this, most of the more puzzling parts of your adventure, see what I did there? I did a pun. Revolve around getting your blue Eco'd ass up from point A to point B before you lose the juice. Lose the juice. Damn it. And that brings us to the combat challenges. Oh, the combat challenges! I'm glad that Naughty Dog was trying to experiment here, and indeed, without these attempts at combat, we'd probably never have seen Jak 2, or at least not in the form we know it. But, god damn! God damn! I mean, look at this! I can't even imagine the board meetings that went on when they decided this was a good idea. I mean, I can only imagine that this was thrown together by an easily impressionable game designer, shown here for reference as Nicolas Cage with the silly hat on his head, who had just got off their break playing Dynasty Warriors or something equally mundane and monotonous and decided that wave-based combat scenarios are so fun that nobody would mind doing it even if they had to use controls meant for 3D platforming. These controls are meant for taking on 1 or 2 enemies at once. The boss battles are more about platforming skill than offensive ability. So when you remove my punch with yellow Eco, meaning I can do 1 shot per second and only in one direction, you've trapped me into using only my spin kick against a horde of enemies who hurt you simply by coming into contact with you. This is not fun. This isn't fun. Naughty Dog is right. This was bad. This was bad. This is bad, Dog. No. Alright, where was I? Okay, so Eco. Eco, it's new. It's new. Gameplay variation, 5-star. Admittedly, I am playing the HD remake, but the game still looks damn nice. The developers went heavy on the Asian influences, and it makes the game feel very exotic. Rock Village is probably my favourite area in the game, not least because of the hidden underwater city. God, I love hidden underwater cities. But because of how drastically different it is from the previous area. And sharks. Lots of sharks. There's this cool thing where the deadliness of the hub world's floors increases each time. It's a nice way to show an increase in stakes. Tangent, back on topic. It really feels like they copped out in the final Sage's hut, though. Maybe the budget was running out and they wanted to get the game done, I don't know. That'd explain the hovering platforms and complete lack of floor have in the final area of the game, though. And how the final area, bar the mountaintop, is entirely cave. Another unrelated point, the wind's always blowing against Jak. I guess they wanted it to look dramatic, but it ends up just looking kinda dumb, especially in situations where the wind should be blowing the other way. A nitpicky point, perhaps, a little persnickety facetiousness on my part, but it does really become immersion breaking if you notice it over much. And you will. Or at least I will, because I do. It's just logical. And alright, with that out of the way, let's talk critical path. Your adventure kicks off when you and your pal Daxter go on a trip to Misty Island, the one place where they were warned never to go, although I'm not sure why, because apparently the beach and the nearby jungle are also dangerous hotspots, and indeed the jungle is called the Forbidden Jungle, which begs the question of where the hell the villagers spend their free time. But I'm getting distracted. Jak and Daxter, that's Jak as in J-A-K and not J-A-C-K, because removing letters makes names cooler, right? They head to the island on a cool hoverboat thing and promptly see the two main antagonists, Satros and Minardi, Gol and Maya. One particularly sharp lurker, these are called lurkers by the way, they don't make that clear in the game, spots the intrepid duo. For ease of explanation in the future, I'll refer to this guy as Dennis, but minus the E because it's cooler that way. Anyway, Daxter talks too much, insults an ancient race, and throws a priceless ancient artifact at you. Jak, however, has the ability to make things glow red. It's then that Dennis jumps down and prepares to attack the duo. And for some reason, instead of taking care of Dennis with his fists, as Jak is capable of doing, he instead opts to use the relic he just sprinkled some fairy dust on as a projectile weapon. I can only assume that he then proceeds to wish upon a star as poor Dennis then promptly explodes, the ensuing force sending Jak flying into Daxter, pushing him into the vat of dark eco. Why he was standing on the brink of it, I have no idea, but it probably made sense to him at the time. After Jak feigns distress for a few seconds, Daxter's spit out of the pit as an otzel, that's an otter/weasel, and screams with joy, as he's always wanted to be able to be actively naked in public and get away with it. Body horror played for laughs past us, Jak and Daxter return to Samos's hut and try to sneak in for some reason despite going there to talk to the man. After some ridiculously detailed Sherlock-esque deductions about their escapades on the island.
The two of you went mucking around in the only place that I told you not to go, Misty Island.
That's right, and then...
And, Daxter, you finally took a much-needed bath, but in a bathtub filled with dark eco.
He then explains that for Daxter to be turned back to normal, they have to visit Gol Acheron, the Dark Eco Sage.
But he lives far to the north. Far, far to the north. Nobody has spoken to him in ages.
However, the teleporter gates aren't turned on. And why would they be? It's not like the only way north is through a canyon hot enough to melt metal or anything.
Only other way north is by foot through the Fire Canyon, but its volcanic soil is hot enough to melt precursor metal.
Oh, bugger. Fortunately, Samos's daughter Kira has a So, young mechanic and cover girl for Weird Gloves Monthly just so happens to be working on a hoverbike. Yes, a hoverbike. With a heat shield to travel across the canyon to the next village. All she needs are 20 power cells to power it. So off you go. Go collect shit. But first, Samos thinks that a tutorial is necessary, so Jak and Daxter, understandably infuriated, reluctantly comply. So collect power cell, watch dance, collect power cell, watch dance, yada yada, bing bang boom, ad nauseum. Also, you try and kill a senior citizen with an egg, have a power egg stolen by that bloody pelican, and you punch a yak. And Daxter stomps on a cat. It's all fun and games up in here. After a hectic ride through Fire Canyon, you arrive in Rock City, where the Blue Mage is missing and a giant monster is pelting the city with giant flaming boulders. I've always enjoyed games that show your enemies in the distance, and I think Rock City's my favourite area in the whole game, despite it being resident to boggy swamp and its combat arenas and hillbilly caricatures with their questionable relationship with animals. But unfortunately, your forward progress is blocked by a stray boulder from Fiery Beast de Jour, and subsequently, you need to find another bunch of power cells to operate the lifting device the Blue Eco Sage just happened to be building before he mysteriously disappeared. After an age of power cell collecting in some of my favourite areas in the game, the Lost Precursor City and the Precursor Basin, as well as Buggy Romp, which feature really interesting gameplay, the basin being vehicle-based and the city being largely puzzle-based. Seriously, at times it feels more like a dungeon from The Legend of Zelda than a platformer. You fight the boss. Much like the previous boss in the jungle, Tentacles McGee, it's mostly about pattern memorization, only this time round it's less super dumb. What are you doing? What is he doing? Are you asking me to kill you? Are you suicidal? Are you dumb? What is he doing? And after he's done, it's a short race against lurker terrorists to Volcano Basin, the final hub zone of the game. After, wait for it, collecting another several dozen power cells, bringing the grand total to 72, you once again race along an extremely lava-intensive cavern, although this time as you progress you venture into Golem Maya's wharf factory, so there's actually quite a bit of variation in here. Then, boom, you're at the Citadel. So, after rescuing the 4 sages, oh yeah, Samus got captured, forgot to mention that one. And solving some very, very dumb platforming challenges. I mean, what is this? What purpose could this possibly, which you're still rewarded with power cells for some reason, despite no longer actually needing them. Up you go to fight Golem Maya in their giant mosquito robot man. No, it's fine, don't worry. So, after the sudden appearance of the hitherto unknown giant fighting robot that is completely fine and isn't dumb at all, it's time for battle. And by battle, I mean more pattern recognition! And who doesn't love bosses surrounded by a bottomless pit on the outside and an ever-widening death pit in the center? Well, even if they don't, Naughty Dog certainly doesn't care because they're doing it anyway. And if you die, you have to start the fight all over again. Good game design award. Gold star. Smiles all around. Jesus Christ, I'm going to murder everything. So, shoot, jump, avoid, repeat. And now this is it. But what's this? A large quantity of floating white eco? And you have to choose between reverting Daxter to a human form or saving the world from whatever precisely it is that Golem Maya are trying to do with all that dark eco? Oh, what a tough decision. Oh wait, there's lots of light eco. But apparently that hasn't occurred to our heroes as Daxter, heroically decides not to destroy the world so he can briefly be human again before everyone he knows dies in agony. And so Jak goes Super Saiyan, blows up the robot with his mind, and then traps the immortal Golem Maya inside the Dark Eco silos, where they'll suffer eternal pain forevermore. Oh God! That's ridiculously messed up. Who wrote this? That explains a lot, actually. So that's it. You won, you monster. But of course, this is all just my opinion, so unless we get a second one, this is just nonsense. So let's go and get one.
Hey Rock, what do you think of Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy on PlayStation 2?
But the rocks do not recall. Even the rocks do not recall.
God damn it!
Thank you very much for watching this episode. I appreciate it enormously. And special thanks go to my friend Joash for helping me do this, and Vernon Shaw of Hot Pepper Gaming for being an absolute champion and helping me out. Also, mad props to you for sticking through this. And if you liked it, why don't you give it a like? And if you subscribed it, you could give it a subscribe. And if you followed it on social networking, then why don't you follow me on social networking? There are some other videos in these here captions. If you click them, they'll take you to them, and then you can watch those, and that's how YouTube works. Thanks again. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time.